the Seahawks said the reason why they chose not to draft Malik Willis was because they didn't feel he was NFL ready. Now, I think this is crazy because you don't have a quarterback, a definite quarterback that you can say, yeah, that's a proven commodity. You got Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Not happy about it. And you're saying, well, he's not NFL ready. That's the reason why you have Geno Smith and Drew Lock. If it works for the short term, the long term is that quarterback you drafted. You could do what the Packers are doing, where they have Rodgers and Jordan Love. Jordan Love was definitely not going to play year 1 or year 2. That was a definite. Now we got to figure out when he does play, but as of right now, he's not. The same thing could have happened with Malik Willis. You put him on the bench, you have Geno Smith or Drew Lock start, and then next year you go and say, well, okay, now here's the reins, Malik. Go and control this football team. That's what you do. Instead, and it would have helped him because he went to a small school. But now you're like, well, we believe Drew Lock is the better quarterback, and if he was in this draft class, he would have been picked first. Maybe. But the point is, you're still going to have to do this probably next year. So why waste time? Go and bring him in. You have a definite quarterback for the future, but for the short term, you can roll with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. But you guys chose, no, we're going to go with someone else. We're going to wait. We're going to go to the free agency or the draft of next year. It's a waste of time to me. You had a perfectly good quarterback who could fit your rebuild process, and you chose to go in another direction. Now, Kobe Dean says he will remember being drafted in the 3rd round. Now, everyone remembers being drafted. That's a big thing. But I think people don't understand that because you fell in the draft does not mean you weren't a good football player. It just means, for whatever reason, whether it was injuries, like in the Kobe Dean's case, whether it was personality, or whether it was something else that was out of control and no one could deal with, was the reason why you fell so far in the draft. Or for another reason of just no one felt they could or should, and they chose to go in another direction. For Kobe Dean, it's the first one. He was riddled with injuries in college. He's probably the best linebacker, but riddled with injuries. People are saying he may need surgery on a torn pec. He doesn't believe on a pec, but he doesn't believe he does. He's had injuries to his ankles, his knees, and his shoulder, and I even heard his elbow. So there's a reason why he fell, but everyone's like, oh, he will remember this. Yes, sure he'll remember, but at the same time, do you really want them? If you don't have a good career and you're riddled with injuries, people are going to remember they made the right choice to go in the 3rd round and not the 1st. We got to stop trying to say, well, everyone's Tom Brady if they fall in the draft. It's not how it works. There's only one Tom Brady. But at the same time, if Kobe Dean is a good football player, we're having a different discussion 5 years later. The NFL had an investigation, and they said they couldn't find any evidence. Excuse me. They couldn't find any evidence that the Browns were paying Hugh Jackson to lose. Now, this is still roughly ongoing. This was a investigator the NFL hired. That the NFL hired. Not the NFL doing it, the NFL hiring an investigator to do it. So, is this indeed possible? The NFL only wanted to get the stuff that they wanted out? Possibly. But, as of right now, there's no evidence to the claim of Hugh Jackson getting paid to lose. Now, the Flores and Dolphins situation is still ongoing, and we'll hopefully get more news about that in the coming months. Shad Khan was talking with about Urban Meyer, in an interview. And Khan said, Urban Meyer was not fired because of wins and losses. He was fired because he was untrustworthy. You couldn't trust the guy. Which is what we've said since he's been fired. You can't trust this guy. Now, my question is, when did that information came out? When could you decide not to trust him? Or was that the incident in Ohio when they were against the Cincinnati Bengals and he ended up not going on the plane and the video came out of him doing what he was doing? Was that when he kicked the kicker in the leg saying, "Make your kicks and I'll kick you whenever I want to"? Was that when he told the coaches that you're a losers, I'm a winner, defend your resumes? Was that situation? Pick anyone you want. This guy has never shown that he's trustworthy and he has a big ego. That's always been the point. He's always had a big ego and he's not trustworthy. Go back to the college level and live there. Don't go here. Don't go where the big boys play. Because not everyone can do it. And definitely Urban Meyer couldn't. The NFL international games are the Broncos and the Jaguars, in no particular order. Broncos and Jaguars, October 30th. Giants vs. Packers in London on October 9th. 49ers vs. the Cardinals in Mexico City, November 21, I believe. Bucks vs. Seahawks in Munich, Germany on November 13. Vikings vs. Saints in London on October the 2nd. Also news that Brady could be the first quarterback in NFL history to win a game in 4 different countries. The Bucks have never won an international game either. They're 0-3. Brady's 3-0. The difference, I think, for Brady is this, and no one's talked about this. Brady could be one of the first quarterbacks to ever throw over 1,000 yards outside the United States. That's how crazy this can be. He could have 1,000 passing yards outside the United States. I don't think anyone has done that. And that would be another claim that he's the GOAT of the NFL. The Cowboys decided to let go of Siwo Alanalua, their fullback. This was because the Cowboys had 92 players. They had that you can only carry 90. They had 92. So they have to release another person. But right now, Siwo Alanalua is not a Cowboy anymore. And this is a guy who I thought was going to get a roster spot. Ended up getting hurt getting hurt with the neck injury. Could not play. Now he's no longer in the team. I hope he goes somewhere and plays well. I hope he gets that opportunity. And who knows? You go into camp and someone's not playing well, or someone gets hurt, and we need to get a fullback. Who can we go get? Siwo Alanalua is still out there. He's not on any team. Let's go bring him back. And they chose to do that. That could definitely happen. Now, if you haven't watched the news, you won't know this, but Jerry Jones was in a car accident. The update is he's fine. He's okay. A lot of people say, well, blame Jerry Jones. He's the one that caused the accident. You're right. You can blame him, but the point that we should be making is this. If you've ever driven a car before, you know it's a dangerous thing. It was the car that I guess you can call the victim, but he wasn't. He was turning. He stopped in the middle of an intersection, trying to make a delivery, turned slowly, and had to cross the lane that Jerry Jones was driving in. Jerry didn't stop and kept going, because when the guy was turning, he ended up slowing down where Jerry's car was, and Jerry ended up hitting him. No one got hurt, but you're talking about inches. Could there be a claim that Jerry doesn't deserve to have his license? Maybe. But in my opinion, and not as an NFL fan or a Cowboy fan, as a person, and you learn this in driving school, the person who's going straight has the right of way. If you have to cross his or her lane, you're at fault. Especially if you stop in the middle of an intersection and then turn slow.